Ones who can control things are being worshipped by their followers, but the wise ones who controlled themselves are being worshipped by the ones who control the others. Let's discover the great humans who detach themselves and others from all dimensions including time. "21 Asankhya Kalpa ago in a small village there happened to be a story. A true story about a courageous young man who rescued his mother from a shipwreck. Saving his mother's life had become an inception of rescuing numerous living beings including gods as his mother blessed his courage with miracle words, the words that made the boy reincarnated as a bodhisattva in same life. From that very point he who spent another 9 Asankhya Kalpas without breaking the promise that he gave to his mother, was wishing to become a Sammasambuddha. This period is called Mano Pranadhana. During this 9 Asankhya Kalpa he who met 387,000 Buddhas has completed his Mano Pranadhana. At the end of that period he met a Buddha called Gautama. Gautama Bodhisattva who realized the stunning qualities of Gautama Buddha has pledged to become himself by the name of Gautama in future. This was the beginning of the second quarter of his journey and it was another 7 Asankhya Kalpas. This period is called Loard Pranadhana. During this 7 Asankhya Kalpas he who met another 125,000 Buddhas. He met another 3 Buddhas in same Asankhya Kalpa but when he met a Buddha called Dipankara his Loard Pranadhana was completed. This was the remarkable point, as it was the starting of his last quarter called Kaya Pranadhana. It took another 4 Asankhya Kalpas to complete this wonderful journey.
Let's see the 27 Buddhas and the incarnations of Gautama Bodhisattva during the latter part of his journey. Four Asankhya Kalpa ago, during the first Antha Kalpa of that Saramanda Kalpa, Tanhankara Sammasambuddha who had practiced paramita for 16 Asamkhya eons to gain enlightenment was born in Puphavati to the king Sananda and queen Sananda.
Tanhankara Sammasambuddha who was the most diligent one, lived for 100,000 years. The incarnation of Gautama Bodhisattva became a disciple of him and asked for his wish. However, Tanhankara Sammasambuddha did not grant his wish. After death, the incarnation became a deva in the desire realm.
In the same Asankhya Kalpa, during the second Antha Kalpa of that Saramanda Kalpa, Medhankara Bodhisattva who had practiced paramita for many Asamkhya eons to gain enlightenment was born in Yagara to King Sudeva and Queen Yasodhara.
Medhankara Sammasambuddha who was the most repute one, lived for 90,000 years. The incarnation of Gautama Bodhisattva became a disciple of him and asked for his wish. However, Medhankara Sammasambuddha did not grant his wish. After death, the incarnation became a deva in the desire realm.
During the third Antha Kalpa of the same Saramanda Kalpa, Saranankara Bodhisattva who had practiced paramita for many Asamkhya eons to gain enlightenment was born in Vipula to King Sumangala and Queen Yasavadi.
Saranankara Sammasambuddha who was the most benefited one, lived for 90,000 years. The incarnation of Gautama Bodhisattva became a disciple of him and asked for his wish. However, Saranankara Sammasambuddha did not grant his wish as well. After death, the Bodhisattva became a deva in the desire realm.
During the fourth Antha Kalpa of that same Saramanda Kalpa, Dipankara Bodhisattva who had practiced paramita for many Asamkhya eons to gain enlightenment was born in Ramavati to King Samatha and Queen Sumedha. Prince Dipankara was brought up in luxury, and when he came of age, he ascended the throne. As a king, he lived in 3 golden palaces, namely, Hamsa Palace, Heron Palace or the Konka Pasada and Peacock Palace or the Mayura Pasada, by rotation for 10,000 years. There were about 300,000 well-ornamented female attendants. His chief consort was Paduma and his son, Prince Usapakhana.
Dipankara Bodhisattva left home on an elephant and practiced austerities for 10 months, and his body tree was the Pipali. Dipankara Sambuddha was always attended by 84,000 arahants, and his body was 80 cubits in height. It was during the time of Dipankara Buddha that the ascetic Samatha, who later became Gautama Buddha, first declared his intention of becoming an aspirant for enlightenment. This is called Nyatha Vivarana, or definite foresighting. Dipankara Sambuddha, who was known as lamp-bearer among enlightened ones, lived for 100,000 years, and his doctrine lasted for another 100,000 years.
Three Asankhya Kalpa ago, during the first Antha Kalpa of Atsara Kalpa, Konala Bodhisattva, who had practiced paramita for many Asankhya eons to gain enlightenment, was born in Ramavati to King Sananda and Queen Sujata.
At that time our Bodhisattva was a universal monarch, Vijatavi by name, ruling in the city of Kandavati. Having numerous distinguished hosts of attendants, he held, under his sway, the whole stretch of land in the universe up to the end of the 4 oceans with righteousness, not by force nor by arms. Then Buddha Konana, setting out on a journey followed by 100,000 crores of arahats, arrived at Kandavati. Hearing of the Buddha's visit, Bodhisattva King Vijatavi extended a warm welcome to the Buddha, made arrangements for his lodging and invited him and his disciples for the next day's meal. The following day, he prepared the meals properly and performed a ceremony of alms food offering on an elaborate scale. Having thus performed, the king listened to the Buddha's sermon, which was given in appreciation of the offering. At the end of the sermon, he made a request: may the Venerable Ones spend the 3 months of Vasa in the city of Kandavati, to do the citizens a favor. And he performed matchless acts of charity to the congregation of monks led by the Buddha during the whole period of Vasa. Then Buddha Konana declared a prophecy. Konana Sambuddha attained parinirvana aged 100,000 years at Kanarama, where a stupa 7 leagues tall was constructed over his relics. In the Buddhavamsa commentary it is said that Konana Buddha's relics were not dispersed but kept in a single mass.
Two Asankhya Kalpas ago, during the first Antha Kalpa of that Saramanda Kalpa, Mangala Bodhisattva was born. He had practiced paramita for 16 Asankhya eons to become a Buddha. Mangala Bodhisattva was born in Uttara, which was reigned by King Uttara. During the gestation period, his mother, Queen Uttara, glowed very brightly around a radius of 80 cubits, or 120 feet. Because of the light, she could travel at night without the use of other light sources. The Bodhisattva was married to Queen Yasavadi and reigned the country for 9,000 years. His son was Savala. As soon as his son was born, he decided to leave the palace to practice asceticism. 3 million servants followed him to become fellow ascetics. He practiced for 8 months. After practicing for 8 months, he left his servant ascetics and went to the Mesua Ferrea tree. He began to practice peacefully under the tree and gained enlightenment the next morning.
Buddha Mangala's rays shone forth more intensely than those of other Buddhas. The rays from other Buddhas produced automatically without supernormal power, reached the distance of either 80 cubits or just an arm's length. But Buddha Mangala's rays shone day and night all over the 10,000 world system. Because of such brilliance, not only all the surrounding objects, such as trees, the ground, forests, hills, oceans, etc., were illuminated, but, to say the least, pots and pans that were usually dirty and black, with soot, were lit up as if they were covered with gold. The lifespan of people belonging to the period in which Buddha Mangala appeared was 90,000 years, and during that whole period everything was thus gold in color. During his dispensation, the the sun, the moon, stars and planets had no light. Since there was no sunlight, the demarcation between day and night was not distinct. Though there was absence of sunlight, people moved about attending to their business by means of the Buddha's rays. Days and nights are recognized with the help of the chirps of birds, that were normally heard in the morning, and the blooms of flowers that are normally seen in the evening. The question may be asked whether other Buddhas were lacking such glorious powers. The answer is, they were not. Indeed, they also had such powers. They could make the rays permeate the 10,000 world system if they so desired. But while others had their natural luminescence of their bodies just within an arm's length, the rays of Buddha Mangala's body always spread throughout the 10,000 world system without having to be produced purposely because of the power of his wish made in a previous existence. At Mangala Buddha's time, Gautama Buddha was a Brahmin named Sarasai from the Brahmin village. After listening to the teachings of the Buddha, he invited him and his 1 trillion disciples to his place. When he was thinking about a place for them, Thagyamin helped him by building a large pavilion. Sarasai decided to donate their needs for 7 days as it was of high value. After a week of donation, Mangala Buddha granted his foresighting. Sarasai, having his wish granted, gave away all of his possessions and became a disciple of Mangala Buddha. He became a god in the Brahma realm after death. Mangala Buddha lived for 90,000 years. In the Buddhavamsa, his death is described as, he had enlightened the world with the Dhamma candle and he died like a setting sun.
During the second Antarkalpa of the same Saramandakalpa, the Bodhisattva descended to the human abode and took conception in the womb of Sairama, queen of Sudatta, in the city of Mekhala. At the time of his conception, 32 prophetic phenomena became manifest.
Samana Bodhisattva left the palace on an elephant, practiced austerities for 10 months, and attained enlightenment under a naga tree, being given a meal of milk rice by Anupama. In the lifetime of Buddha Samana, Bodhisattva Gautama was born as Atala, the powerful Naga king. Learning that a Buddha had appeared in the 3 worlds and accompanied by all his kith and kin, he came out of his residence and performed acts of merit towards the Buddha, and his 100,000 crores of bhikkhus, by making celestial music in their honor, and by performing a great act of alms-giving in the form of food and drinks. Then Buddha Samana prophesied, this Naga king will become Buddha Gautama in future. Samana Sambuddha is known as the Wise One. His body was 90 cubits in height, and he attained parinirvana at the age of 90,000 in Angarama, where a thupa of 4 leagues was erected over his ashes.
During the third Antarkalpa of that Saramandakalpa, Ravata Bodhisattva was born in Sudhanaka to King Kartiya Vipula and Queen Vipula. Ravata Bodhisattva left the palace and practiced austerities for 7 months, and attained enlightenment under a naga tree, being given a meal of milk rice by Sadhu Devi.
At that time, our Bodhisattva was a Brahmin named Atideva, fully accomplished in Brahmanic law, which was handed down by generation after generation of teachers. On encountering Buddha Ravata, and after listening to the Buddha's sermon, he took refuge in the 3 gems. He also sang 1,000 verses in praise of the Buddha's attributes of morality, concentration of the mind and wisdom, and offered his upper garment that was worth 1,000 pieces of money. Thereupon Buddha Ravata made a prophecy, 2 asankhayas and 100 eons after the present one, you will become a Buddha by the name of Gautama. Ravata Sambuddha was 80 hands in height, and his aura spread uninterruptedly to a distance of 1 yojana. He attained parinirvana in the Mahasara pleasance at the age of 60,000, and his relics were scattered.
During the 4th Antarkalpa of that Saramandakalpa, Sobhita Bodhisattva was born in Sudhama to King Sudhama Vipula and Queen Sudhama. Sobhita Bodhisattva entered the monastic life in the palace itself, practiced austerities only for 7 days, and attained enlightenment under a naga tree in the palace garden. He is being given a meal of milk rice by his wife Samangi.
At that time, our future Buddha Gautama was born a Brahmin, Sujata by name, whose parents were of Brahmin caste, in Ramavati city. Having listened to the Buddha's Dhamma, he was established in the 3 refuges. He gave alms on a grand scale to the Buddha and his Sangha for the 3 months of Vassa. Then the Buddha made a prophetic declaration concerning Sujata the Brahmin: this man will become a Buddha, Gautama by name, in future. So Bhita Sambuddha was endowed with good qualities among enlightened ones. His body was 58 hands in height, and he attained parinirvana at the age of 90,000 in Siharama.
One Asankhya Kalpa ago, during the first Antarkalpa of that Vara Kalpa, Anomadasi Bodhisattva was born in Chandawati Nagara, to King Yasava and Queen Yasodhara. On his naming day, he was given the name of Anomadasi by wise men because while he was in the womb there was incessant falling from the sky of the jewels called Anoma.
Anomadasi Bodhisattva decided to leave the palace to practice asceticism. 30 million servants followed him to become fellow ascetics. He practiced for 10 months. After practicing for 10 months, he left his servant ascetics and went to the Terminalia elliptica tree. He began to practice peacefully under the tree, and gained enlightenment the next morning. At Anomadasi Buddha's time, Gautama Bodhisattva was a Burmese leader. After listening to the teachings of the Buddha, he invited him and his disciples to his place. He fed them and filled their needs for 7 days. After a week of donation, Anomadasi Buddha gave his foresighting. Anomadasi Buddha is like a large ocean, a mountain that one hardly approaches, the infinite sky, or a sal tree that can bloom well. Anomadasi Buddha attained parinirvana at the age of 100,000 in Dhammarama monastery.
During the second Antarkalpa of that Vara Kalpa, Paduma Bodhisattva was born in Kampaka to King Kartiya Asama and Queen Asama. At the Bodhisattva's birth, a rain of Paduma lotuses fell from the sky over the whole of Jambudvipa, reaching the surrounding seas. On his naming day, learned Omin readers and relatives named him Mahapaduma because of that. Paduma Bodhisattva's wife was Uttara and his son Rama. He left palace in a chariot and practiced austerities for 8 months. Dhanavati gave the milk rice to Bodhisattva before the enlightenment.
While Buddha Paduma was staying in that forest grove, our Bodhisattva was king of lions. Seeing the Buddha in Nirodha Samapatti, or the attainment of cessation, the Lion King developed faith in him, did obeisance, by circumambulating him. Exalted with joy, he roared 3 times and remained there for 7 days without losing his ecstasy, which was derived from the sight of the Buddha. Without going in search of food, he stayed near the Buddha respectfully, at the risk of starvation. When 7 days had elapsed, on emerging from Nirodha Samapatti, Buddha Paduma saw the lion and made a wish: may this lion have faith in the order of monks also. At the same time, he resolved to have the order near him: may the monks come here. Immediately several crores of monks arrived on the spot. The Bodhisattva developed faith in the order also. After surveying and knowing the Bodhisattva's mind, Buddha Paduma made a prophetic declaration: in future, this Lion King will become a Buddha, Gautama by name.
During the third Antarkalpa of that Vara Kalpa, Narada Bodhisattva was born in Dhananjaya Park at Dhanavati, to King Sudeva and Queen Anoma. Just when he was about to be named, falling from the sky from wish-fulfilling trees, various kinds of clothing and ornaments like a heavy rainfall. On account of this he was named Narada. Nara means ornaments. Narada Bodhisattva made his renunciation on foot accompanied by his retinue. He practiced austerities only for 7 days, and attained enlightenment under a Mahasona tree. He is being given a meal of milk rice by his wife Jitaseena.
At that time our Bodhisattva was a hermit, who found a hermitage in the Himalayas and lived there, and who had mastered the 5 abhinas and the 8 samapatis. Out of compassion for Bodhisattva hermit, Buddha Narada visited the hermitage in the company of 80 crores of lay disciples who were all anagamens. The noble hermit was glad to see the Buddha. He then created another residence for the Buddha and his bhikkhus. In the whole night, the hermit extolled the Buddha, relating all his attributes and listened to his sermon. The next morning, he went to the northern continent, by his psychic power, and brought back cooked rice and other kinds of food which he offered to the Buddha and his followers of bhikkhus and lay disciples. In this way, the Bodhisattva offered food for 7 days, after which he paid homage to the Buddha and offered a priceless red sandalwood from the Himalayas. Then Buddha Narada, after delivering a sermon, prophesied, "A Buddha you will certainly become in future." His 88 cubits or 120 feet high, and his aura always spread round him to a distance of 1 league, he attained parinirvana at the age of 90,000 in Sudarsana. After the Varakappa, in which appeared the Buddhas Anomadasi, Padyuma and Narada had come to an end, incalculable eons passed. Then in one Kappa, 100,000 eons before the present one, there appeared Buddha Padumuttara. This particular eon was Sara Kappa, as Buddha Padumuttara alone appeared then, yet it resembled a Manda Kappa of 2 Buddhas because of its delightful features. In the eon to which Buddha Padumuttara belonged, there lived only people who abounded in meritoriousness. Padumuttara Bodhisattvas was born in Hamsavati, and he is an excellent being. His wife was Vasudatta, by whom he had a son, Uttara. His body was 58 cubits high. He practiced austerities only for 7 days, and attained enlightenment under a Dipterocarpus elanicus tree. Whenever Padumuttara Buddha steps, a sacred lotus appeared at where his foot land. The lotuses had a length of 90 cubits or 135 feet and a breadth of 60 cubits or 90 feet. The stamens were 30 cubits or 45 feet and the petals were 12 cubits or 18 feet. When his right foot lands, 2.25 quarts of pollen were produced. When he took another step, the previous lotus disappeared and a new one appeared. At that time, our future Buddha Gautama was Jatila, governor of a province, and was very wealthy. He performed a great almsgiving of food and clothing material to the Sangha, with the Buddha at its head. At the end of the sermon, which was delivered in appreciation of the almsgiving, the Buddha prophesied of the governor, 100,000 eons from now this man will certainly become a Buddha, named Gautama. At Padumuttara Buddha's time, Gautama Bodhisattva and many of his disciples were said to have made their aspiration for eminent positions.
"30,000 eons, in other words 4,31,520,000,000,000 ago, during the first Antarkalpa of that Manda Kalpa, Sumedha Bodhisattva was born in Sudarsana, to King Kartiya Sudatta and Queen Sudatta. He was described as hard to attack, of intense incandescence, supreme sage in all the world. He was clear-eyed, full-mouthed, of tall stature, upright, majestic. He sought the welfare of all beings and released many from bondage. Padumuttara Bodhisattva's wife was Sumana, by whom he had a son, Sumita. His body was 88 cubits in height. He who left home on an elephant and practiced austerities for 8 months was given a meal of milk rice by Nakula. He attained enlightenment under a Haldina cordifolia tree. During Sumedha Buddha's lifetime, the one destined to become Gautama Buddha was known as the Brahmin Uttara, who, upon entering ascetic life, made an offering to Sumedha Buddha and his order of 80 crores of wealth.
30,000 eons ago, during the second Antarkalpa of that Manda Kalpa, Sujata Bodhisattva was born in Sumangala, to King Ugata and Queen Agamahij Pabhavadi. He has a chin of a lion and shoulders of an ox. He is the most unique being and no one dared to approach him. With no dirt, his complexion shines like a clear moon or like a shining sun for eternity. Sujata Bodhisattva's wife was Sirananda Devi, by whom he had a son, Upasena. His body was 50 cubits in height. He left home with his horse, named Hamsavaha. 10 million men followed him to become ascetics. He practiced asceticism for 9 months. After 9 months, he began to practice alone and become enlightened under the Mahavalu tree in the next morning after a meal of milk rice given by the daughter of Siranandana Seti of Siranandans. At Sujata Buddha's time, Gautama Buddha was a Chakravarti, or a universal ruler. After hearing the enlightenment of Sujata Buddha, he went to pay homage to him. He also gave away his possessions to become an ascetic. When he told his wish, Sujata Buddha said this king will become a Buddha named Gautama in the Bada Kalpa, which will appear after 30,000 kalpas. The incarnation of Gautama Buddha, having his wish granted, extended his practices and became a god at Brahma realm. Sujata Buddha lived for 90,000 years, liberating many living beings. He attained Parinibbana, and died at Silarama Monastery.
18,000 eons ago, during the first Antarkalpa of that Vara Kalpa, Piyadasi Bodhisattva was born in Sudhana. His mother is Queen Sukanda. He was called Piyadasi because he showed many pleasing miracles. Piyadasi Bodhisattva's wife was Vamala, by whom he had a son, Kankanavala. His body was 88 cubits in height. He left home in a chariot and practiced austerities for 6 months. He was given milk rice by Vasabha's daughter. He attained enlightenment under a Kakuda tree. A monk named Sona conspired with Prince Mahapadama to kill the Buddha, Dhanamukha being the elephant they used in their unsuccessful plot. Piyadasi Sambuddha lived for 90,000 years and attained Nibbana at Asatharama, his thupa being 3 leagues in height. The Gautama Bodhisattva of that time was a Brahmin named Kassapa, and he built a monastery for the Buddha at a cost of 100,000 crores.
During the second Antarkalpa of the same Vara Kalpa, Athadasi Bodhisattva was born at Susindana Park in Sobhana, to King Sugara and Queen Sudarsana. He was named Athadasi because owners of treasures, which were hidden underground, recovered them, after having discovered the forgotten sites where their treasures had long been kept, one generation after another. When Bodhisattva Athadasi came of age, he lived in 3 palaces, namely, Amaragiri, Shugiri, and Vahana. Being entertained and served by 33,000 female attendants, headed by Princess Visakha, he thus enjoyed a divine-like royal household life for 10,000 years. When the Bodhisattva had seen the 4 omens and when Queen Visakha had given birth to a son, named Sela, he went forth riding a horse, named Sudarsana. 9 crores of men joined him and became recluses themselves. He practiced austerities for 6 months. He was given milk rice by female Naga, Susindhara. He attained enlightenment under a Kakuda tree. Buddha Athadasi's rays of intense power emitting from his body, constantly radiated, glowing above and below in the 10 quarters for a yojana. At the time of Athadasi Sambuddha Gautama Bodhisattva caused a rain of flowers to fall in the 4 quarters, like a great rain that fell all over the 4 continents. He also created a pavilion of flowers decorated on all sides with flowers, had a pinnacled arch over the entrance with decorated columns and nets, etc., and adorned with flowers. He then honored the Buddha with a huge umbrella of celestial Mandarava flowers. Buddha Athadasi then made his foresighting.
During the third Antarkalpa of that Vara Kalpa, Tamadasi Bodhisattva was born at Sarana Park in Sarana, to King Sarana and Queen Sunanda. Since his birth, unrighteous rules and codes applied in lawsuits had all automatically disappeared from law books, while righteous ones had remained. Therefore, when the prince was to be named, he was given the name of Tamadasi by learned omen-reading men, and his relatives. When Bodhisattva Tamadasi came of age, he lived in 3 palaces, namely, Araja, Viraja, and Sudarsana. Being entertained and served by 43,000 female attendants headed by Princess Visikolai, he thus enjoyed a divine-like royal household life for 8,000 years. After practicing Dukkarakaraya for 7 days, Bodhisattva Hamidasi ate the milk rice offered by Princess Visikolai. He attained enlightenment under a Rath Karor tree. Buddha Hamidasi, who was endowed with unparalleled might and the 5 eyes, lived the whole lifespan of his time, which was 100,000 years. At that time, our Bodhisattva was Sakka, king of Devas. Being accompanied by Devas of 2 divine abodes, Kachi Maharajika and Tavatimsa, he visited the Buddha and honored him with celestial flowers, etc., and various sounds of celestial music. Then the Buddha made a prophetic declaration: this Sakka will indeed become a Buddha, Gautama by name, in future.
"94 eons ago, during the first Antarkalpa of that Sara Kalpa, Siddhartha Bodhisattva was born at Virya Park in Vibhara, to King Udina and Queen Suphasa. On his naming day, learned readers of omens, and his relatives, named him Siddhartha because, at the time of his birth, everybody's endeavors, big or small, were accomplished and desirable results achieved. When Bodhisattva Siddhartha came of age, he lived in 3 palaces, namely, Koka, Supala, and Kokanada. Being served and entertained by 48,000 female attendants headed by Princess Vamanasa, he thus enjoyed a divine-like royal household life for 10,000 years. When Bodhisattva Siddhartha had seen the 4 omens and when Princess Vamanasa had given birth to a son, named Anupama, he went forth riding a golden palanquin on the full moon day of Asali and became a recluse in Virya Park. 100,000 crores of men joined him and also became recluses. He partook milk rice offered by a Brahmin girl, named Sunetta, and attained enlightenment under a Kinihira tree. At that time, our Bodhisattva offered the fruits as food to the Buddha, who was accompanied by 90 crores of his disciples. Having partaken of the fruits, Buddha Siddhartha declared prophetically, this Mangala, the ascetic, will indeed become a Buddha, Gautama by name, in the 94th eon from now.
"92 eons ago, during the first Antarkalpa of that Mandakalpa, Thissa Bodhisattva was born at Anoma Park in Kamaka, to King Janasana and Queen Paduma. On his naming day, learned readers of omens and his relatives named the Bodhisattva, Prince Tissa. When the Bodhisattva, Prince Tissa, came of age, he lived in 3 palaces, namely, Kasala, Narasaya, and Nizaba. Being entertained and served by 30,000 female attendants, headed by Princess Subhada, he thus lived a divine-like royal household life for 7,000 years. When the Bodhisattva had seen the 4 omens and when Princess Subhada had given birth to a son, named Ananda, he went forth riding a thoroughbred horse, named Sonatara, and became a recluse. A crore of men were inspired by his renunciation and joined him, to become recluses by themselves too. He partook milk rice offered by Vera, daughter of a wealthy person of Vera market town, and attained enlightenment under a pear tree. At that time, in the middle of the assembly of 4 classes of people, the Bodhisattva stood, holding over the Buddha's head a Paduma sunshade, which was an umbrella made of very sweet-smelling pollens, with a rod of ruby, and a pinnacle of leaves of red ruby. In this way, he thus honored the Buddha. Then the Buddha prophesied concerning the Bodhisattva, Sujata the ascetic, in the 92nd eon from the present one, this Sujata the ascetic will become a Buddha, Gautama by name.
"92 eons ago, during the second Antarkalpa of that Mandakalpa, Phassa Bodhisattva descended to the human world to be conceived in the womb of Queen Sairama, consort of King Jayasena, in the city of Kasika. When 10 months had elapsed, the Bodhisattva was born in Sairama Park. When the Bodhisattva, Prince Phassa, had seen the 4 omens while thus enjoying life, and when Princess Kisa Gotami had given birth to a son, named Anupama, he renounced the world, riding an elephant. 10 million men joined him, and also became recluses by themselves. He partook milk rice offered by Sairivada, daughter of a certain wealthy man, and attained enlightenment under a Philanthus emblica tree. At that time our Bodhisattva was King Vijayatavi, in the city of Arindama. Having listened to the Buddha's discourse, he developed faith in him, and performed a great almsgiving by giving his city, and he became a bhikkhu and learned the 3 Pitakas. Being well versed in Pitakas, he disseminated the Dhamma to all people. He also fulfilled the perfection of morality. Then Buddhapasa, noble leader of the 3 worlds, made a prophecy concerning Bodhisattva, Bhikkhu Vijayatavi, in the 92nd eon from the present one. This Bhikkhu Vijayatavi will become a Buddha, Gautama by name.
91 eons ago, during the first Antarkalpa of that Sarakalpa, Vipassi Bodhisattva descended to the human world and was conceived in the womb of Queen Bandhumati, consort of King Bandhuma, in the city of Bandhumati. When 10 months had elapsed, he was born in Meghadaya garden, which should be called Deer Park, for as a sanctuary, Kema by name, it was full of deers. Miraculous happening. When the Bodhisattva prince was born, wherever he went, by day or by night, a huge white umbrella of divine origin constantly hovered over him to protect him from heat and cold, dust and dew drops. He was ever adored by people. He was brought up being carried now in one's lap and then in another's, having no chance to put his feet on the ground. Since his birth, he had possessed wonderful eyes which were kamavipakaja, or which appeared as a result of his meritorious deeds, and powerful like those of the divine ones. With these eyes, the Bodhisattva could see unobstructed as far as 1 yojana around, in daytime or at night. As devas of Tavatimsa always see only with their open eyes, so had the Bodhisattva prince seen things with his never closed but ever open eyes since his birth, hence his famous name, Prince Vipassi. When the Bodhisattva, Prince Vipassi, had seen the 4 omens while thus enjoying life, and when Princess Sudarsana had given birth to a son, named Samavatakhana, he renounced the world. 84,000 citizens of Bandhumati, on hearing of the prince's renunciation, joined him and also became recluses by themselves. He partook milk rice offered by the daughter of Sudarsana, the wealthy man, and attained enlightenment under a Stereospermum suaviolens tree. At that time our Bodhisattva was King Vijayatavi, in the city of Arindama. Having listened to the Buddha's discourse, he developed faith in him, and performed a great almsgiving by giving his city, and he became a bhikkhu and learned the 3 Pitakas. Being well versed in Pitakas, he disseminated the Dhamma to all people. He also fulfilled the perfection of morality. Then Buddhapasa, noble leader of the 3 worlds, made a prophecy concerning Bodhisattva, Bhikkhu Vijayatavi, in the 92nd eon from the present one. This Bhikkhu Vijayatavi will become a Buddha, Gautama by name. 31 eons ago, during the first Antarkalpa of that Mandakalpa, Sikhi Bodhisattva descended to the human world to be conceived in the womb of Pabhavati, consort of King Aruna of Aranavati city. When 10 months had elapsed, the Bodhisattva was born in Nisaba Park. On his naming day, learned readers of omens and his relatives named him Sikhi, because a band on his head, which was like flesh on the forehead, stood out like the crest of a peacock. When Bodhisattva Prince Sikhi had seen the 4 omens while enjoying royal household life, and when Princess Sabakama had given birth to a son, named Attila, he renounced the world riding an elephant. 7 million men also renounced the world, following his example. He partook milk rice offered by Piyadasi, daughter of a wealthy man, resident of the market town of Sudarsana. He attained enlightenment under a mango tree. At that time our Bodhisattva was King Arindama, in the city of Parabhutta. When Buddha Sikhi visited the city with his retinue, the king welcomed him. He paid homage to the Buddha respectfully and invited him to the palace, where he performed grand almsgiving befitting his status of kingship, high birth, of wealth and faith, in the Buddha. Moreover, he offered the Buddha his state elephant, who was possessed of strength, auspicious, marks and speed, and who was adorned with golden nets and flowers. Having assessed the value of the elephant together with his adornments, he also offered the Sangha, headed by the Buddha, objects that were permissible to monks. The cost of these objects was equal to the assessed total value of the elephant. Then, with reference to the Bodhisattva Arindama, Buddha Sikhi declared prophetically, in the 30th eon from the present one, this king Arindama will indeed become a Buddha, Gautama by name.
"31 eons ago during the second Antarkalpa of that Mande Kalpa, Vesabu Bodhisattva descended to the human world to be conceived in the womb of Queen Yasavati, consort of King Supatita, in the city of Anoma. When 10 months had elapsed, the Bodhisattva was born in Anupama Park. When the Bodhisattva prince was born, he uttered triumphant words that were pleasing to people and, on that account, on his naming day, learned readers of omens and his relatives named him Prince Vesabu. When the Bodhisattva, Prince Vesabu, had seen the 4 omens while thus enjoying life, and when Princess Sushta had given birth to a son, named Supabuddha, Bodhisattva Vesabu renounced the world riding a golden palanquin to the royal gardens. He partook milk rice offered by Sairavadana, resident of the market town of Sushta. He attained enlightenment under a Shaurya robusta tree. At that time our Bodhisattva, King Sudarsana, made a great alms-giving including robes to the Sangha, headed by the Buddha. In the very city of Sarabhavati, he built a monastery, called Perfumed Chamber, for the Buddha, and also 1,000 encircling monasteries for the Sangha, and offered to them. Since the Bodhisattva was delighted profoundly with the Dhamma taught by Buddha Vesabu, he desired fervently to become a monk. Accordingly, he gave away all his royal wealth to the cause of the Buddha's dispensation. Filled with faith and joy, the Bodhisattva monk paid obeisance to Buddha Vesabu. Then there occurred a great longing in him for omniscience. Knowing that the Bodhisattva monk had undiminished energy, Buddha Vesabu prophesied, in the Bada Kappa, 31st eon from the present one, this monk, Sudarsana, will indeed become a Buddha, Gautama by name.
During the first Antarkalpa of this Bhadrakalpa, Kakusanda Bodhisattva descended to the human world to be conceived in the womb of a Brahmin woman, Visakha by name, wife of the Purohita Agadatta, who was advisor to King Kamankara of the city of Kamavatai. When 10 months had elapsed, the Bodhisattva was born in Kamavatai Park. All past Buddhas, from Dipankara to Vesabu, belonged to royal families, except for Buddha Kakusanda, who was born to a Brahmin family. In the society, which is composed of 4 classes of people, namely, aristocrats, Brahmins, traders and lowly ones, never is a Buddha conceived, in his final existence, in the womb of a woman of the latter 2 classes. Buddhas hailed only from aristocratic and Brahmanic families. Since recognition of the former as the most superior is more frequent, Buddhas are generally aristocrats by birth, and because it is only sometimes that Brahmins gain superiority, Buddhas of Brahmanic birth are fewer. Thus, the greater number of aristocratic Buddhas and the smaller number of Brahmin Buddhas should be understood. When he had seen the 4 omens and when Rosani had given birth to a son, named Uttara, Brahmin Kakusanda renounced the world riding a chariot drawn by a thoroughbred horse and became a recluse. Joining him were 40,000 men who also became recluses by themselves. Brahmin Kakusanda partook the milk rice offered by the daughter of a Brahmin, Vajirinda, of the market town of Vajirinda. He attained enlightenment under Albizia Lebbek tree. Meanwhile, our future Buddha Gautama was King Kema. Having made grand offering of bowls and robes to the Sangha, headed by the Buddha, and also having offered them such medicinal materials as minerals for preparing eye ointment etc. and herbs including licorice among others, he became so immensely pleased with the Dhamma taught by the Buddha that he renounced the world and became a monk in the Buddha's presence.
During the second Antarkalpa of this Bhadrakalpa, Konagamana Bodhisattva descended to the human world to be conceived in the womb of a Brahmin lady named Uttara, wife of Yanadatta Brahmin, in the city of Sabhavati. When 10 months had elapsed, he was born in Sabhavati Park. At the time of the boy's birth, there fell a heavy shower of gold over the whole of Jambudvipa, and taking the significance of this event, coming down of gold from the sky, learned readers of omens and his relatives named him Kanakagamana. Kanaka means gold, Agamana coming, hence Kanakagamana, the boy for whom gold has come down. Owing to its antiquity, the original name Kanakagamana has taken the corrupt form of Konagamana. When the boy Konagamana came of age, he lived in 3 palatial mansions, namely, Tusita, Santusita, and Santuptha. Being entertained and served by his wife Rusagata, a Brahmin lady, and her host of 16,000 Brahmin female attendants, he thus enjoyed a divine-like household life for 3,000 years. When he had seen the 4 omens and when Rusagata had given birth to a son, named Satyavaha, Brahmin Kakusanda renounced the world riding an elephant. 30,000 men, following his example, also renounced the world. Brahmin Kakusanda partook the milk rice offered by Agasona, daughter of Agasona. He attained enlightenment under a ficus racemosa tree. Meanwhile, our future Buddha Gautama was King Pabata, in the city of Mithila. He was a powerful ruler associated with strong allies. Hearing that Buddha Konagamana had arrived in his city, he welcomed him with his retinue and army, invited him respectfully and performed a ceremony of grand alms-giving. He also requested the Buddha to observe Vasa in his city, and he would look after him, and his Sangha for the 3 months of the rainy season. Besides, he offered the Sangha, headed by the Buddha, cotton cloth, silk cloth, woolen cloth, golden sandals and many other things made in Paktana country and Sena country. The Buddha then prophesied of him, in this very Bada Kappa, this King Pabata will indeed become a Buddha, named Gautama.
During the 3rd Antarkalpa of this Bhadrakalpa, Kassapa Bodhisattva descended to the human world to be conceived in the womb of Dhanave, a Brahmin lady and wife of Brahmadatta Brahmin in the city of Varanasi, which was ruled by King Kiki. When 10 months had elapsed, the Bodhisattva was born in Isapatana Deer Park. When the boy Kassapa came of age, he lived in 3 mansions, namely, Hamsa, Yasa, and Sirananda. Being entertained and served by his wife Sunanda, a Brahmin lady, who had 48,000 female attendants, he thus enjoyed a divine-like household life for 2,000 years. When he had seen the 4 omens while living a household life and when his wife Sunanda had given birth to a son, named Vinjatasena, he was stirred with religious emotion and he thought to himself, I shall renounce the world immediately today. No sooner had he thought thus, the Bodhisattva's mansion rotated like a potter's wheel and flew up to the sky, and came down to the ground with the Nigroda Bodhi tree in its center. Then the Bodhisattva got down from the mansion. Standing on the ground, he accepted the robes offered by a Brahma and put them on. Brahmin Kassapa partook the milk rice offered by his wife Sunanda. He attained enlightenment under a Ficus bengalensis tree next morning. Meanwhile our Gautama Bodhisattva was famous as Joshpala the youth. He could recited the Veda texts continuously, learned various hymns by heart, reached perfection in the Vedas and was accomplished in treatises on prognostication that explain physical marks of an extraordinary being. Joshpala was an intimate friend of Ghatakara the potter, who, being a noble supporter of Buddha Kassapa, had took him to Buddha Kassapa. Having learned the teachings or pariyatti of the Buddha which comprised 9 divisions, he glorified the Buddha's dispensation. Discerning Joshpala's aforesaid marvelous qualities, Buddha Kassapa prophesied of him, this Bhikkhu Joshpala will indeed become a Buddha, named Gautama, even in this Bada Kappa.
During the 4th or the current Antarkalpa of this Bhadra Kalpa, Gautama Bodhisattva descended to the human world to be conceived in the womb of Queen Mahamaya, consort of King Suddhodana, in the city of Kapilavathu. When 10 months had elapsed, the Bodhisattva was born in Lumbini Park to accomplish his long journey. This was the end of a voyage of another great man who rescues people from themselves, has started it by rescuing his mother's life many years ago.
In the last birth all bodhisattvas show below signs of perfection, or in other words effects, flat soles, 1,000 spokes, toe membrane like that of a great royal swan, soft hands and feet, joints and ankles fully fleshed, skin flows in one direction, ankles of a deer king, body rounded and perfect like the Niagara tree, fingers reaching the knee when hand is stretched down, buddhic protuberance on the crown of the head, genital organ lies hidden, delicately soft skin, bodily hair turns to the right-hand side, body shines brightly in a golden color and light, full and firm in the 7 places of the body, boneless parts of the body are full and the upper part is like that of a lion, elbows well balanced and delicate, 40 teeth are white and pure, well balanced and delicate, 2-fanged face, lion's cheeks, taste that is the mid-upper, large and long tongue, Brahma voice, blue tone of the eyes, silver tuft of hair on the brow.
These are the respective causes of those forementioned effects. The Bodhisattva is immovable in his upholding of the precepts in his mind of giving, and is like Mount Sumeru in abiding in the true word. The Bodhisattva fittingly offers things to his parents, the honored ones, elders, and animals. The Bodhisattva takes joy in non-harming and non-stealing and is pleased regarding his parents, honored ones and teachers. The Bodhisattva, when his parents, teachers and elders are ill, himself washes and wipes, holds and rubs their limbs. The Bodhisattva upholds the precepts, listens to the sermons, and knows no end of giving. The Bodhisattva single-mindedly gives ear to Dharma and expounds the right teaching. The Bodhisattva acquires no harming mind, is satisfied with his food and drink, and with giving, and attends to illness, and dispenses medicine. The Bodhisattva, when he sees a person in fear, extends help, and when he sees a person without any footgear, gives him clothing. The Bodhisattva readily befriends wise men, segregating himself from the ignorant, he takes pleasure in exchanging views and sweeps the path along which he walks. The Bodhisattva always gives men clothing, food and drink, medicine, incense and flowers, and lights. The Bodhisattva gives, does not grudge at whatever is rare, and easily parts with such, he makes no distinction whatever between a field of weal or a non-field of we. The Bodhisattva seeks wealth lawfully and gives this away. The Bodhisattva segregates himself from double tongue, from ill-speaking and an angry mind. The Bodhisattva practices great loving kindness towards beings. The Bodhisattva takes this vow, any may come and ask, and I shall give as they desire to have. The Bodhisattva gives whatever kind of food beings desire to have. The Bodhisattva exerts himself in the 10 good deeds and thereby teaches others. The Bodhisattva does not speak ill of the shortcomings of others and does not slander wonderful Dharma. The Bodhisattva sees all enmities and gains a pleasant mind. The Bodhisattva does not conceal the virtues of others, but praises the good which they have. Through their truth and virtue, and the strength of their patience and friendliness, may all be always protected with good health and happiness.